Congressman Mark Green, former Army Ranger, Special Forces flight surgeon, now member of the House Armed Services and Foreign Affairs Committee, with us now. How long till we have a supply and demand problem, Congressman?
Well, we have a flow problem, Leland. We're never going to go below certain amounts, that are our strategic reserves. So America doesn't have to worry. We're not giving away what we need to fight our conflicts, but we have a flow problem, and that you just mentioned it. It's about the diameter of the pipe. The company right now can't make more. And when I came back from Poland after meeting with the guys doing the mission over there, we said very specifically the military industrial complex, which, by the way, it's not all Biden's fault on this one. This is a whole of government, Congress, administrations past have cut the size of our military industrial complex, the base of industries and companies that supply our weapon systems, so their capacity is limited. They've got to step that up, and that's going to take money, and it's going to take money from through the DoD.
Right. It also takes time at a very least. You can't build new plants overnight, no matter how much money you throw at a problem. We learned that in World War II. Thinking about the $800 million in assistance for Ukraine, howitzers, 40,000 rounds, counter-artillery radars, surveillance radars, some helicopters, unmanned coastal defense. I'm wondering, at some point, are the Ukrainians getting better at learning how to use all this stuff?
Well, there's no doubt about that. And of course, I have told the big Army guys over at the Pentagon, the big military guys at the Pentagon who are real concerned about the China threat, don't dare cut the soft budget, because what you're seeing right now, the actual skills of the Ukrainian fighters are because our special forces were in there training these guys. So, this is proving that, paradigm or that utilization of those forces. So we can't make those cuts. But, they're getting better. They're learning. The Russians are learning, too. They're directing their firepower at different assets. They're looking at command and control centers now. So they're getting smarter. The Ukrainians are getting smarter. We're getting smarter as we watch this. A lot of learning going on.
And the other way the learning's going, though, is that the Russians are learning about what American weapon systems actually do in the field that we're handing over. You have to imagine they've captured some of this stuff along the way at one point or another. You know that the Russians need the Chinese. How likely is a lot of what the Russians are capturing and learning going to Beijing so they know about what to do with Taiwan?
Well, the Javelin's been around for a long time, and so has the Stinger. I mean, the Stinger's been around since Russia invaded Afghanistan. So it's not new technology, and those are probably already in their hands. We're not giving them our sort of fifth-generation weapon systems for that very reason. But we took on – we didn't necessarily take on Russians, but we were in a fight in Syria where equipment was probably, transferred. So that's what we're sending them. We don't have to worry about. They probably already have.
What do we have to worry about with Ukraine as it seems like the momentum has shifted?
Well, we have to concern ourselves now with the long-term nature of this conflict. The Russians are going to continue to push for this Donbas sort of, the land bridge is what it's been called, to Crimea. And the Ukrainians are committed. They believe they can push the Russians out. So this fight is going to go on for a very long time. Russia's probably got about 85% of its combat strength still in the field. The battle's going to go on for a long time, and we have to figure out how do we sustain the Ukrainians in this long-term fight without, provocating the Russians to fight at us or fight with us.
It's interesting you say it's been going on for a long time, because since you and I have known each other, we've been talking about Ukraine. I was there in 2014. The war never really stopped in a way. It just sort of flared up now in this much larger way. What is the U.S. Army's assessment now of the ability in your assessment, of the Ukrainians' ability to continue this long enough that Vladimir Putin is going to give up?
Well, what we have to do is exact cost. The West has to stay the course on the sanctions, particularly Europe. But if you look at what they're doing, the Europeans are pushing even harder. There was some talk about Germany, or a company in Germany, supplying 55 Leopold tanks to the Ukrainians. So it's really about staying the course, and that's something that the West sometimes struggles with.
Yeah, I was going to say, staying the course is not exactly one of our strong suits.
Yeah, what we've got to do is commit ourselves to the long term here, and that means the economic impact of the sanctions, which impacts fuel costs and fertilizer costs and all that. We have to be concerned about the wheat supply and the corn supply. I mean, Ukraine's 13% of the world supply in both, our production in both of those. So this is going to be a long-term fight, and Americans have to prepare our economy and our military-industrial base and stay the course.
One thing is interesting, you talk about the sanctions, and we've worked on this. Obviously, there's been sanctions against Vladimir Putin's oil industry from the United States. It really hasn't done much because the Europeans haven't gone after it. But as we understand it, the United States still buys metals from Russia. This idea of really cutting Vladimir Putin off in the way that, you hear the White House say America will not fund his war, we still are.
Yeah. No, we are. And that's the point we've been making with the president. The stair-stepped sanctions aren't working. They're emboldening Putin. And you take, as you mentioned, metals. Titanium is Russia's the #2 producer of titanium in the world. And I think Boeing is still acquiring titanium for its landing gear from Russia. So, I mean, we have to just shut them off completely from the world economy. And it doesn't look like the president, anyway, wants to do that.
You made an interesting point where you said that you couldn't blame the Biden administration in terms of the supply and the weapon systems that are right now heading over to Ukraine simply because there may not be enough to send. At some point, do you have to give the Biden administration a little bit of credit here that you and I are still talking about this 50 days later? Because on day 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, we said this was going to be over in a week. And at least in some ways, the Biden administration's given the Ukrainians enough to fight and the intel to do it with.
Well, remember, Leland, it took them a long time to get the Stingers and the Javelins there. Yeah. We voted on it in November, and they didn't get there until a week before the conflict. So there have been significant mistakes made by the Biden administration. But the military-industrial complex, that pipeline that we mentioned at the beginning of our conversation tonight, that blame rests on the Congress, many Congresses, and many administrations.
Well, it sounds like most problems in Washington if you actually dig deep enough.
Yeah.
Congressman, it was good to see you, sir. Thank you, and stay safe in the storm in Tennessee. We'll talk to you soon, sir.
See you, Leland.
Yeah, thank you.